Okay, members, I'd like to invite you again to the 14th meeting of this session, our 72nd meeting overall. We're in public session. Welcome anyone who is listening in. And I'd like to also take the opportunity to welcome Gareth Wilson to the committee. Gareth is replacing William Mairead, who has stepped down just before Christmas. Members, I recommend you turn off your mobile phones. We're quorate, and so members, you're welcome to use mobile devices in the public gallery, provided they are in airplane mode and all devices are muted, and you can take photographs of the meeting at any time. I'd like to formally welcome Gareth, as I said previously, and I look forward to your contributions. And if there's anything you want to add to that yourself, Gareth, or
No, just thanks for the warm welcome, and of course maybe to pay a tribute to William, who I worked for nearly 19 years, so supported him quite a bit with the committee and that behind the scenes, and with a great working relationship, and he really did bring his knowledge of agriculture right to the heart of government here in Northern Ireland, and he often made progress on issues that really mattered to farmers. And I know committee people here that it's quite a dynamic committee, and I think he got on quite well with people from what I could see and understand and hear, and just from the warm words that were spoken in the chamber before Christmas. So thanks very much for your warm words as well, Chair, and look forward to the months ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, Chair, just to echo your sentiments, welcome Gareth, absolutely, and wish him well, particularly over the coming months, baptism of fire in effect. And also to pay tribute to William. You might be a wee bit like William in this case. When William was appointed to this committee, he never got off it again, so he's been a permanent structure on this committee for a very long time, probably one of the longest serving committee members in the Assembly for one particular committee. A lot of us move about time to time, but that speaks to his invaluable experience in this area, and he had a tremendous knack for weeding out some of the more detailed issues and some of the challenges facing particularly farmers. He's very passionate about it. So I had a great time for William. He's a gentleman, and I do wish him well, good health and happiness in the future, and his well-deserved retirement, and I hope you'll pass that on. But I agree, Chair, we welcome Gareth, but it's a loss to lose William.
John?
Chair, yeah, thank you, and I want to add what Daniel said there and agree with it by saying that, first of all, a very warm welcome to Gareth, as I said in the chamber the other day, to welcome to the committee as well. And I can't do that without mentioning Willie Irwin again. We spoke here privately one day, of course, with Willie, and were able to speak with him before he left the Assembly. But I'm very conscious that his hard work on this committee and in the Assembly and in his party will be much missed. I know from first-hand experience from people I know who live in his constituency how hard he worked on the ground as well. And I, as an individual who didn't always agree with him on matters in this committee or in the Assembly chamber, that his hard work, diligent approach, his courtesy and also his good humour will be missed by many in my party, and I'm sure in his own.
Okay, thank you very much for those words, and again I want to underline them all. I agree with them all. I found him to be a great character, so did, and I too have been on this committee apart from a very short stint. I've been on the committee since it started, so I've been with him all that time as well. In my time, he's been here longer, but he certainly was a character, and he brought a lot of he brought a serious amount of wealth of knowledge to this committee, and he's able to take maybe complex topics and just break them down into easy to understand language, and I really appreciate it. Really enjoyed having William here all these years. So hopefully I'm sure he's going to be very busy on the farm and many other things like that. I know William won't be a man for going home and going to the golf course. I know that. So good luck to him. But, okay, folks. First item of apologies. I'm aware that Aoibheann and Anya are on their way, so there's a full house apart from that. Okay, and any declarations of interest for madams are under discussion today. So agenda item 3, chairperson's business. Page 6 of the pack, correspondence dated the 16th of December from the Assembly Engagement Team regarding this year's Balmoral show, which will be from the 13th to the 16th of May. They highlighted the success of last year's show and have asked for confirmation by the 30th of January that the committee is content to participate again this year. Michelle?
Just obviously welcome the fact that we are going to have a presence at Balmoral, but I suppose it was just really about how we did that. We were very conscious of the fact that we did a committee meeting and it was incredibly noisy. It was very difficult to manage. I was just wondering whether or not, I know that other committees did much more of an engagement piece, and I was wondering maybe if that might be something that we could explore as an alternative to actually having a formal committee, given the size of the space and also the noise.
We are investigating with engagement another space, potentially for a meeting if we wanted to go that way. I don't want to speak for the chair because he's not here, but I was speaking to him about it yesterday. Perhaps we are having a closed session, so perhaps we could, if the chair is here by that stage, perhaps we could return to it. Thank you.
Yeah. I agree with your comments, Michelle. We did have a really good engagement last year, but it was a bit crowded and noisy, and maybe we could definitely improve on it this year. So
Sorry,
we should pick up on it.
Chair, I should have said as well, engagement have advised me that they are looking to get better microphones for that space as well, for this year. So.
Yeah, it's important we're there now. Okay, so we'll return to that. So members, a very page 8 of the pack corresponds to the 13th of December from Castlewell and Blackface sheep breeders regarding the effects of blue tongue virus restrictions on hill farmers in the Mourne and Steve Crib area AONB. They stressed the importance of access to Britain and the South of Ireland for the slaughter and processing of lambs, as restrictions may result in loss of income for sheep breeders and possible animal welfare issues. That was received just before Christmas recess, and the most recent press release, as far as I'm aware, from DAERA is from the 8th of January, when Minister Muir announced some financial support for the pre-movement testing of high-risk animals out of the current blue tongue virus temporary control zone. They may have had some impact on these farmers. Members, if any comments, you're going to note this? Or? Okay. Well.
Deputy Chair, I suppose just to note this particular one, but I suppose it is about making sure that we do get regular updates with regards to this, because obviously there's still a certain amount of anxiety around it, and obviously what happened sort of pre-Christmas was a challenge, and particularly I have to pay so was particular focus to St Field Mart, who were impacted quite significantly in a financial way around this, and the fact I had contacted the department, who unfortunately have said that there wouldn't be any compensation for them, but I wouldn't, if committee were minded, perhaps maybe just to raise that as an issue with the department in their engagement with the likes of St Field Mart or other marts going forward, and that they do keep regular update with them, because obviously there is an immediate financial impact on them too, along with breeders of livestock.
Yeah. With that,
You can do a letter,
Department,
Department, yes.
Thank you, Michelle. Members, refer to page 9 of the pack, corresponds to the 22nd December from the RSPB, providing its assessment of progress made in protecting nature and climate in NI in 2025 and views on what the department's priorities should be for 2026. An offer has been extended to host the committee at one of its reserves. Members recall that we held a meeting at the RSB window on Wildlife Centre on the shores of Belfast Lough in early in 2025, and a briefing from RSB, PB and the MV Kestrel on Lough Erne. Any comments or wish to add this to our list of possible venues? Have we enough to add to the list? Members, page 12, the number 4 here, item 4. Page 12 of the pack, written statement from the Minister of Finance regarding the proposals for the draft multi-year budget for 26 to 29-30. Refer to page 2 of the table of papers to a copy of the oral statement made in the Chamber on Monday, which expands on the written statement. An 8-week consultation which closes on the 3rd of March will help inform the executive decision on what could be the first multi-year budget in over a decade. We will be requesting that the Finance Director, Roger Downey, brief the committee on the budget exercise as part of our scrutiny. However, the executive need to agree DAERA's budget first, then work with the Minister on how he proposes to allocate the funding internally. Remember, are you okay that we take this briefing in due course, or have you any particular comments at the minute? Briefing in due course?
Yep.
You're welcome. Agenda item 4, draft minutes from our meeting on the 11th of December, starting at page 31 of the pack. Are you okay with the minutes as drafted? Okay. Members, matters arising then. Page 45 of the pack for the response date the 8th of January from the Minister in response to a query raised during his briefing on the 4th of December regarding the gene tipping scheme and comparison with the uptake of any similar schemes in the south of Ireland. The response states that the Irish Cattle Breeding Federation have advised that approximately 50% of breeding cattle herds, that's dairy and beef, have enrolled in the National Genotyping Programme. Members content to note this? Okay. Matter Horizon 2, I refer you to page 46 of the pack to response to the 10th of December from the Department regarding geographical and grade distribution of current staff vacancies within DAERA and associated staff costs. You'll recall on the 27th of November we were advised that DAERA is operating with 838 vacant full-time equivalent job posts. We were concerned about the potential implications for DAERA's operation performance and staff delivery and impact on staff. The response also states that agency staff costs for that period from the 1st of April to the 31st of October stands at 9.5 million. Any further comments on these vacancies? Are you content to note?
Nope.
Okay.
Matter Horizon 3, query to page 51 of the pack to correspondence from the Department on the 15th of December regarding Blue Tongue. Members will recall that we requested clarity on the timeline provided between notification and test results and details of the current anticipated resources to manage this event as it develops. The Department has provided a timeline following the detection of the virus on the 28th of November on samples collected during routine testing on the 18th of November, which resulted in the imposition of temporary control zone. Complementary results on samples sent for testing at UK National Reference Laboratory at Purbright in Surrey were received on the 4th of December, allowing the CVO for NI to officially confirm the disease. The Department states that resources and capacity to address the outbreak will be kept under continual review and communication with stakeholders engagement with counterparts in the south of Ireland and the UK continues. Have you any comments to note? Okay. Okay, members, Matter Horizon 4, I refer to page 55 of the pack, a response to the Department date the 6th of January in response to a request for details on any actions undertaken concerning the impact of blue tongue virus on the sheep sector. The Department states that from the 19th of December, movement of animals within the BTV control zone were permitted subject to additional requirements for high-risk animals. For sheep, all animals may move under licence without testing except breeding males, which must have a negative PCR test before movement licence is granted. These updates have been communicated through a press release, stakeholder briefings and updates to the Department. Members, okay, to note? Any comments? Okay, members, page 55, this is Matter Horizon number 5. 58 of the pack regarding update and progress of sustainable utilisation of livestock slurry phase 2. You recall on the 20th of November we considered a written briefing regarding progress of the 2 ongoing individual projects and noted that the 3rd contract remained unsigned and we sought an explanation for the delay. The Department states that a delay in planning approval with 3rd supplier's development hindered efforts to sign the contract, but following approval the contract is now in the finalisation stage. To accommodate the delay, the project end date for all suppliers has now been extended from September 27 to September 28 with no change to the maximum funding of 4 million for each supplier. And members, okay? No? Yeah. Matter Horizon 6, page 62 of the pack to response to the Department date the 6th of January regarding the consultation and mandatory implementation of bovine electronic identification. Members will recall we considered the written briefing on the 11th of December, noting introduction will initially be voluntary from July 26 and mandatory EID would then be introduced for all newborn calves at some point in 27. We then sought clarification on several areas as follows. In response to our query if IED tags will be interoperable with systems outside this jurisdiction, the Department states that NI will follow standards consistent with England, Wales and the South of Ireland and the EU. ID numbers can be read using the same equipment, although Scotland uses different EID technology. The tag number will remain visually readable, allowing manual recording. In response to our query regarding a feasibility study on implementing an all-island EID system, the Department states that the rules on some identification of livestock are set down in EU animal health law, and as the same technical standards apply to EID devices, NI EID tags will be able to be read in the South of Ireland and vice versa. In relation to financial incentives and support, the Department states that it cannot commit at this stage but will make a final decision after the consultation. However, EID equipment is being considered for inclusion within the Sustainable Farming Investment Scheme expected to launch early this year. Members, okay to note? Okay. Members, matters rising 7. I refer you to page 66 of the pack for correspondence dated the 16th of December that we have copied from Minister Muir to the Chair of the Committee of Finance regarding the review of arm's length bodies and ALB pay landscape review. Minister states DAERA is engaged with DOF in relation to both reviews. A number of ALBs already make use of shared services and will consider further opportunities for efficiencies. Members okay? Okay, members. Agenda item 6, we have a departmental oral session, the Greenhouse Gas Emissions Trading Scheme Amendment Order 2026, page 71 of your pack. I refer you to the briefing paper from the Climate Change Legislation and Policy Division. I also refer you to the pack for a copy of the SI and explanatory memorandum starting at page 75, correspondence from the Department dated the 12th of December starting page 107, and correspondence from the Department dated the 16th of December starting at page 112. The purpose of the draft order is to make technical amendments to the Greenhouse Gas Emissions Trading Order Scheme 2020, which established the EU Emissions Trading Scheme. This draft order makes a number of technical changes to the free allocation of calculations for the next allocation period from 2027, while also setting out the pathway to further reforms aligned with the introduction of the UK Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism in 2027. You recall that the history of this essay is as follows. After its initial laying, the Delegated Powers and Law Reform Committee in the Scottish Parliament identified 2 minor drafting errors. They were subsequently corrected, and an amended version of the order was relayed before both Houses of Parliament on the 16th of December, and then before the NI Assembly, Scottish Parliament and Welsh Synod on the 17th of December. We were advised of this in the letter dated the 12th of December. The corrected SI and EM were shared with the committee on the 18th of December. I now welcome the following officials to the committee and invite them to brief the committee. We have Richard Coey, Deputy Director, Emissions Trading Scheme, Carbon Pricing and Windsor Framework. Richard, you're very welcome. Anna McMahon, Head of UK Emissions Trading Scheme Branch. Anna, you're very welcome. And Mairead O'Connor, Principal Scientific Officer, Emissions Trading and Business Support, NIEA. You're very welcome, Mairead. And I'd like you to take the opportunity to brief the committee, and the members then ask questions after you do your briefing. Thank you.
Okay, well firstly, thank you for the opportunity to speak to committee today and give an overview of the Greenhouse Gas Emissions Trading Scheme Amendment Order 2026. The order, which is being prepared by the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, must be laid simultaneously before each House in UK Parliament, NI Assembly, Scottish and Welsh Parliaments under paragraph 11 of Schedule 3 to the Climate Change Act as an order in Council for approval in each of the respective Parliaments, before proceeding to His Majesty's Privy Council, planned for March 2026 to make the order. You will be aware that this draft order was originally laid before the NI Assembly on the 1st of December 2025, but was withdrawn following the identification of 2 minor drafting errors flagged by the Delegated Powers and Law Reform Committee in Scotland. The draft order has since been corrected and relayed under draft affirmative resolution procedure. However, we'd like to apologise for any disruption this process may have caused. There were no other changes made. In terms of background and operation of the scheme, if members are content, I will not go over back this detail, as committee will be familiar with the workings of the scheme from previous ETS briefings. We will, however, be happy to clarify any aspect of the scheme if members wish. I will instead focus on the free allocation aspect of the scheme and the changes to free allocation which will be made with this amending order. Members will be in receipt of a summary of these changes, which was provided in the letter from the DALO in relation to this amending order, which committee noted on Thursday the 4th of December. A written briefing has also been provided, which members will also have a copy of. By way of a reminder, the aim of free allocation in the UK ETS is to mitigate against the risk of carbon leakage, which is when companies may relocate production to countries with less stringent climate laws. This can cause an increase in overall global emissions rather than achieving any net reduction, undermining the actual climate policy and emissions reduction goals. Free allocation of UK ETS allowances is the main policy instrument through which carbon leakage is currently addressed in the UK. The provision of free allowances to operators considered at risk of carbon leakage reduces their carbon price exposure to lessen the risk of them relocating. Following the establishment of the UK ETS, the authority initiated a review of free allocation policy in 2021 to ensure its continued effectiveness as a carbon leakage mitigation. The proposed changes within this draft order stem from the second phase of this review, which included the free allocation review consultation, which ran in 2024, focusing on distribution of free allowance to sectors most at risk of carbon leakage, and a second interim consultation, the Free Allocation Review Carbon Leakage Consultation, which ran in 2025, focusing on methodology for calculating and distributing free allocation. UK ETS Authority published its combined final response to both of these consultations on the 26th of November 2025, and in this publication announced 3 main amendments to free allocation methodology. The UK ETS currently runs for 10 scheme years, which is split into 2 allocation periods, the 2021 to 26 period and the 2027 to 2030 period. The purpose of having allocation periods is to give medium-term certainty to ETS participants as to the level of free allocation which they can expect to get, to allow for their business and financial planning purposes. The changes introduced by this draft order relate to the calculation of free allocation for the 2027 to 2030 allocation period. I will now take you through the specifics of each of the 3 changes. So the first is an adjustment to account for COVID-19 impact. To apply for free allowances, operators must submit a baseline data report to their regulator. In Northern Ireland, this is the NIEA. This report records an installation's historical activity and emissions levels over a specified baseline period. For the purposes of this draft order, the baseline period is 2019 to 2023. A calculation is then applied to determine their free allocation entitlement. This calculation uses this data as well as a sector-specific emissions benchmark and a carbon leakage exposure factor, or CLEF. The CLEF identifies sectors at risk of carbon leakage by assessing their trade and emissions intensities. Therefore, data on activity levels from the baseline period is a key component of the calculation to determine free allocation entitlement for the 2027 to 2030 period. To account for the disruption caused by COVID-19, the draft order will allow applicants the option to exclude activity data for the year 2020 or 2020 plus 2021, as reduced levels of activity during these years of COVID disruption could result in activity reports being unrepresentative of normal activity and potentially unfairly affecting free allocation entitlement. This approach aims to ensure a fairer representation of typical activity levels for the 2027 to 2030 allocation period. The second change relates to the benchmarks used in the free allocation calculation. Benchmarks are set at the average of the top 10% most efficient operators within each subsector, with operators closer to these benchmarks receiving a higher proportion of free allowances. Efficiency is measured on the basis of emissions generated per unit of product, with lower emissions per unit indicating higher efficiency. This ensures free allocation continues to reward and incentivise decarbonisation efforts. The draft order updates the benchmarks used in the free allocation calculation to align with those adopted by the EU ETS for its next allocation period. To note, UK ETS benchmark values have been based on EU values since implementation of the scheme in 2021. However, as the updated EU benchmark values were not available in time for the making of this order, the authority will retain the current values for the 2027 scheme year, with the aim of adopting the updated values for the 2028 to 30 scheme years, once these are available. This approach will provide operators with the necessary certainty to plan for the upcoming allocation period. The decision across the UK to retain alignment with EU benchmarks has been considered in the context of the UK and EU's announcement to work towards linking their respective ETSs, as set out in the common understanding published following the UK-EU summit on the 19th of May 25. Maintaining alignment with the EU approach should also avoid the creation of competitive distortions between both schemes in terms of free allocation entitlement and maintain consistency in decarbonisation incentive. The third amendment allows for phased reduction of free allocation for CBAM covered sectors. From January 2027, the UK Government has announced that a UK Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, or CBAM, will be introduced as a further measure to address carbon leakage by placing a carbon price on imports of goods from certain sectors, with the aim of creating a level playing field by ensuring imported goods face the same carbon price as those produced domestically. CBAM will eventually replace free allocation as the main carbon leakage mitigation tool for the sectors in scope, with gradual phase out of free allocation coinciding with UK CBAM introduction. This draft order enables the reduction of free allocation annually during the period 2027 to 2030 for UK ETS operators covered by the UK CBAM. Operators will be required to inform their regulator if they produce CBAM goods, and the CBAM reduction factor will be applied to those UK ETS activities in each of the 2027 to 2030 scheme years. This approach will ensure a gradual transition for UK industries from free allowances to the UK CBAM as the primary carbon leakage mitigation measure. The EU is planning a similar approach to free allocation reduction as part of the implementation of its EU CBAM. These are the main elements of the legislation. The amendments are of a technical and operational nature and are necessary to ensure the continued effective operation of the scheme. The order does not extend the scope of the scheme to additional industrial sectors. I thank the members for their time and their interest in the scheme and amending order. We're very happy to take any questions or observations members may have.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I suppose just want to delve a wee bit further. This was laid here. I got through here originally, the NI Assembly, and then it was spotted. There's a draft now spotted by the Scottish Assembly. I just was like, how did that happen? How did we miss it?
I suppose, it's unfortunate, and again, I'd like to repeat the apology for any concern or any inconvenience that this has caused. So, as Anna said in her presentation there, the legislation is prepared by the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero drafting lawyers there, and as part of that process there is a robust series of legal checks carried out prior to the legislation being presented to legislatures for laying. There are 3 separate legal checks carried out by different lawyers in the UK Parliament, and then the devolved administrations also review the legislation from a policy-specific level. And if we have any concerns with respect to the drafting, we'll consult with the Departmental Solicitor's Office to get those resolved. That being said, it's unfortunate that these minor drafting errors did get through this time, and I suppose thankfully they were spotted early on in the process, and we were able to amend the legislation prior to it being, I suppose, scrutinised further and coming into force. So it was a mistake, and despite the level of checking that had gone on, including by ourselves, the errors did slip through. So again, I'd like to apologise for that, but it is something that has been, taken into account now, And I suppose as members will be aware, we did lay another amending SI 2 days ago. And as part of that, you know, we were very acutely aware that we wanted to make sure that the same thing didn't happen with that. Now, we're not discussing that particular instrument today. We'll be briefing committee on that in the future. But just to reassure that we acknowledge there was a mistake made, and we do need to make sure that it doesn't happen again. But just to reassure that there are those checks in place, and we do take extra care to make sure that whatever is presented before you doesn't contain any errors. So again, apologies.
And do you see that for delay? Does that have any wider impact, the implementation of the ETS here? Or?
It doesn't, because it was picked up fairly quickly.
Yeah.
So in terms of, for example, today's briefing session, we had requested that this briefing session be put in prior to the original then, and we appreciate that we've been allowed to keep that slot, so it hasn't affected times too much. And subject to committee's views, we're hoping that this passes affirmative debate. The debate has been provisionally penciled in for, I think it's sometime in February. Is it possibly the 16th of February? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's still a month then, I suppose, to address any queries or any issues that might arise as part of the process. So, because it was picked up so quickly, it hasn't caused any knock-on impacts on the implementation, thankfully.
That's good. So, any members, any other questions? No? Daniel?
Just briefly following on from that, I'm glad it was picked up early. Mistakes do happen, but has there been any assessment made of the financial impact on Northern Ireland-based firms, particularly the SMEs?
Regardless of the mistake that was made, in terms of there was an impact assessment that was developed and was published. I think it was November last year, alongside the government response to the consultation that set out the positions that this SI is proposing to make. In terms of the financial impact, this doesn't change anything significantly in terms of what has been in place in terms of the financial impact on Northern Ireland businesses or UK businesses as a result of the free allocation process. Now, it is a significant cost for businesses, so free allocation is something that it's very important, the installations. It's maybe worthwhile just to give a wee bit of the context in terms of the amount of money that the UK ETS raises. So since the UK ETS came into force on 1st of January 2021, it's raised something in the region of 19 billion for the UK Treasury. And actually the most recent auction of ETS allowances yesterday raised something in the region of 140 million for the UK Treasury. So it's significant in terms of financial impact. And in terms of, it's hard to pinpoint the exact cost to NI businesses, because it all depends when and where they buy their allowances from. But it could be something in the region of, I think, 15 million or something per year, depending on the cost of the price of carbon, but something around that. But that's a very much a ballpark figure, and that's based on the number of emissions generated in NI in 2024 times the average carbon price for that year. But it is a significant financial. I don't want to say burden, because it's a decarbonisation policy, so the incentive is there that you have it's supposed to encourage decarbonisation, you know, but the financial impact is very much at the forefront, remains, given the significant costs associated with the UK ETS. And
just finally, just to given the mistake was made, and thankfully it was caught early, but what assurances can we have as a committee that future climate essays will be procedurally robust? Well, in terms of the ones that we're working on along with the UK government to implement the UK ETS, a lot of the reason because of the financial impact. We do have those robust legal checks in place at the minute. We'll be making sure that we double down on those legal checks, I suppose. I suppose it's probably worth highlighting, I mean, this is no comfort at all, but the mistakes that were picked up weren't of a significant nature and didn't change the legal intent of the SI. Mm-hmm. They were, I suppose, presentational. For example, one of the mistakes was that the labelling in one of the tables in one of the annexes didn't reflect the content of the column that it was heading. So, yeah.
But yes, it was unfortunate. We want to make sure it doesn't happen again. I don't want to be here again explaining to yourselves.
We're not that bad.
No, I do want to be here again, but no, I don't want to be here again having to explain why there's been any other mistakes made. So, thankfully, as I say, minor in nature, they're picked up quickly. But
Okay, thank you. All right, Chair.
Yeah, so look, thanks very much for the oral briefing this morning. What role has NIEA, if any, got in this?
Maria, do you have it?
Yeah, sorry, in what context, in the lane or?
Yeah. So in terms of, well, I'm just wondering, has NIEA got a role in it in terms of for what has been discussed this morning? Because I suppose my next question was going to be, does NIEA have the staff and resources needed to properly regulate and reinforce the ETS? And if not, what risks does it pose to compliance, credibility and fairness, particularly in ensuring the costs fall on the big polluters and not ordinary working people? So,
well, we work closely with the UK regulators. We have regular meetings on a weekly basis based on the baseline data report that Anna had mentioned. That work is ongoing weekly to ensure that it's ready in time for the deadlines when it will be going out to the operators. So we do have support outside of NIA itself. We have a small number of sites. There's a lot of regulation for those small number of sites, but again, we do have a lot of support from EA, SEPA and NRW.
I suppose maybe it's worth mentioning, sorry Maria, as well,
okay,
that NIA, we obviously heavily engaged with them during the policy development process, because we want to make sure that whenever we're developing policy, that it's actually NIA have the capacity to deliver it and the resources to deliver it. And NIA, I suppose, I think I'm probably safe to say that you're in fairly regular contact with each of the individual installations. So in terms of what they need to do and when they need to do it by, I mean, if it becomes clear that they're not going to meet the deadline for, say, for example, applying for a free allocation, I mean, NIA will chase that up with the industry. But in terms of, do NIA have the resource to deliver effectively the ETS? I suppose it's safe to say that you do.
Yeah, at the minute we do, yes. There is obviously more regimes coming in, with maritime and whatever else may come down the line. So that could be potential risk at a point. But at the moment, with our installations in aviation, we are okay to cover it.
It would have to be, it's something that is factored in the policy development process, that not only is this deliverable, but is it deliverable in each of the administrations. So there are conversations both between policy officials and between regulators as to, do they have the resources to do this, and what support mechanisms there are within the regulator community, with Natural Resources Wales, with the Scottish Environmental Protection Agency, with the Environment Agency in England, so that where there may be, say, gaps in the knowledge or gaps in expertise, that there are people in other regulatory bodies who can support, if you know what I mean. So, but just to reassure that there is the resource there to effectively deliver, and has been, the free allocation regime.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thomas?
What support is there for SMEs that may struggle with compliance costs?
We have SMEs in the scheme.
Yeah, there wouldn't really be SMEs in the scheme. It's mainly sort of the bigger industries that would.
Bigger industries.
Yes, but in terms of support, I suppose that's the whole point of free allocation, is to make sure that the industries don't face the full cost of their carbon allowances, and they're allowed that level of free allocation, so they're not being disproportionately affected, or there's no unfair competition from imports from jurisdictions that don't necessarily have those carbon prices. That's what free allocation is all about. So that is an effective financial support scheme.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Right, thank you very much, Richard, Anna and Mairead.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for your time.
Members, we're moving on to agenda item 7, this is the Dilapidation Bill, update on the summary of evidence, and we're doing this in a closed session. Can I get committee agreement to do a closed session to receive a progress update on the Dilapidation Bill?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, members, thank you. That's us back into open session. I'm just going to ask for your agreement for the committee team to publish the redacted citizen space responses to our consultation ask. Okay, thank you very much, and also to note the work of the RAISE team in regard to the Dilapidation bill. That was a very worthwhile session, and I know that we will all have got something from it. I'm now going to ask that we move on to agenda item 8, and that is the SR 2026/1, the Shellfish Gathering Conservation Regulations for Northern Ireland 2026. Members, I refer you to page 387 of the pack, to the SL5, the SR and the explanatory memorandum. The SR will be laid before the Assembly under the negative resolution procedure and subject to executive approval. It is anticipated that it will come into operation on the 6th of February. Members, we received an oral briefing on the SL1 at our meeting on the 11th of December and heard that the Department intended to make this SR to introduce a closed period each year to prohibit the taking of periwinkles from the intertidal area during the period January to April the 30th, and that is in any year. The Department states that there have been no changes to the policy content since the SL1 was submitted. So, members, on the 11th of December we agreed that the Department proceed to make the SR, and I'm now going to put the question on that SR. That the Committee for Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs has considered the SR 2026/1, the Shellfish Gathering Conservation Regulations in Northern Ireland 2026, and there's no objection to the rule, subject to the report of Examiner of Statutory Rules. Members, are you agreed? Thank you, members.
Chair, sorry to butt in, but just, you said that that previous session was with RAISE. It was actually with the Bill Office.
I know. Well, obviously I don't know. Yes,
just
for the
don't-
record,
just
it was
for
with
the
the Bill
record,
Office.
yeah.
It was the last session.
For the
yes.
record. Thank you.
Okay,
Sorry.
members, agenda item 9 is the correspondence memo for reference at page 395 of the pack, and I'll refer you to a few of the items. However, if there are any items that you feel need to be brought to the attention of the committee for further discussion, please advise me at that point. So the first one that I want to bring to your attention is at 9.2. I refer you to page 397 of the packed correspondence from the Department dated the 11th of December regarding the 8-week UK-wide consultation on contractual relations in the UK combinable crop sector, which launched on the 10th of December and will close on the 4th of February. It aims to gather evidence on how supplier arrangements currently operate within the sector and explore the nature of relationships between producers, first purchasers and input suppliers. Just drawing that to your attention, members. Are there any comments you content to note? No. Thank you, members. Next one, at 9.3, I refer you to the pack starting on page 399 to correspondence from the Department dated the 18th of December regarding the public consultation for the significant water management issues, otherwise known as SWMI Report 2025. A copy of the consultation paper and summary of water quality and pressures in each local management area start at page 401. After the consultation closes on the 18th of June, the Department will present a synopsis of responses in a report to be shared with the committee. If you have any comments, you can tend to note, members. Okay. Next one I want to draw your attention to is 9.5. I refer you to page 567 of the packed correspondence from the Department dated 19th of December regarding the Plant Varieties Act Amendment Regulations 2026. The purpose is to use the retained EU Law Act to amend the definition of a small farmer in the Plant Varieties Act 1997 to remedy an unintended divergence from EU regulation. There will be no change or amendment to policy intention, and it's intended to more clearly restate the existing position and remove any ambiguity. A draft copy of the SI, which is expected to be laid on the 20th of January by negative procedure, starts at page 569 of the pack. Members, if you have any comments, you can tend to note. Thank you, members. Members, on page 571 of the pack, going to refer to correspondence from the Department dated the 9th of January regarding the launch on the 15th of January of a 15-week consultation on the NI Resources and Waste Management Strategy. The strategy aims to maximise the potential for better use of the resources to prevent them becoming waste or to ensure that they are captured and processed into products and minimise environmental pollution. Any comments or content to note? Thank you, members. 9.8, refer you to page 577 of the pack. To the Clerk's memo dated the 11th of December from the Clerk to the Public Accounts Committee regarding its primacy over NIAO reports published up to the 12th of December 2025. The Committee advises its next inquiry will be a combination of review of waste management in Northern Ireland and waste crime in Northern Ireland. Have you any comments you can tend to note? Thank you, members. At 9.9, I refer you to page 580 of the pack to correspondence from the Windsor Framework Democratic Scrutiny Committee dated the 12th of December regarding veterinary medicine supply to Northern Ireland. A copy of the correspondence dated the 26th of November from the Minister to the Chair of the DSE on the matter is also provided, along with a request to be kept informed about scrutiny work this committee may undertake. Members, have you any comments, or are you content that the DSE is provided with updates as appropriate? Thank you, members. Okay. Members, do you have is there any further correspondence items that you wish to discuss? Are you content to note they're in your pack? Thank you, members. I'm going to deal with that then as per the correspondence memo. Agenda item 10 is the forward work programme. Members, I refer you to the draft forward work programme starting on page 62 of the table papers. Are you content that this is published as shown? Yeah. Thank you, members. Agenda item 11, any other business? Okay, thank you very much, members. And then agenda item 12, date and time, place of next meeting is room 21, Thursday 22nd of January at 10 a.m. The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.